Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 824 of the Juicebox Podcast. Claire is an adult living with type 1 diabetes. She got the diabetes while she was pregnant, and she has an amazing accent. This is pretty much what you need to know to enjoy this episode. While you're listening, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you are a U.S. resident who has type 1 diabetes or is the caregiver of someone with type 1, please take the survey at t1dexchange.org/juicebox. It will take you fewer than 10 minutes. It will help you, diabetes research, and me. It's a trifecta of goodness. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Join the registry, take the survey. That's pretty much all you have to do. You can do it right from your house. Oh, I have unprecedented time left. What should I do with it? I'm so indecisive today. Oh, hell. Now I'm out of time. All right. Hold on a second. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is brought to you by Touched by Type 1. This is a terrific organization helping people with type 1 diabetes, and all they want is for you to check them out on Facebook, Instagram, or at touchedbytype1.org. This will take you, look, you're on your phone constantly. I know you are, okay? Touchedbytype1.org. Just go look. They're amazing. You're going to get there and you're going to be like, oh my God, look at all the good stuff they're doing. And that'll be it. The podcast is also sponsored today by AG1 from Athletic Greens. With just one scoop of delicious AG1, I start my day off every day with a green drink that fuels me and tastes good. athleticgreens.com/juicebox.
My name is Clare. I'm 35 years old and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 26 weeks pregnant.
Are you 25 years old?
I'm 35 years old.
35, excuse me.
Yeah.
How long ago were you pregnant?
So that was September 2020. I was 26 weeks pregnant at the time, and I kind of found out by accident. So I went to the doctor and I just kind of mentioned, hey, my skin's really itchy. And he sent me in for some other tests. But at the time he was like, you might as well do your gestational diabetes test at the same time. So I went and I did that feeling fine. Like I really didn't have any symptoms looking back. And my blood sugar was 20 mmol an hour after the drink that they give you. Mm-hmm. So when he seen that, he knew right away that it wasn't just gestational diabetes. And when I got into the endocrinologist, she decked pretty quickly that my mom was celiac. I had thyroid issues. So she kind of knew that everything pointed towards type 1 right away. Yeah. So, it was a huge shock. My first pregnancy, it definitely wasn't something that I was expecting.
I guess not. What kind of thyroid? Do you have hypo, Hashimoto's?
Hypo. So I don't how I found out about the thyroid was before I got pregnant. I just got blood work done. And my doctor said that I was borderline, and just because I was trying to get pregnant, let's just put you on some medication. So I was on a really low dose that went kind of up in pregnancy, and now I think it's like 0.75 I'm taking daily. Mm-hmm. So I looked up my last thyroid test here. It's 1.76. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's in the range. So
that's your TSH?
Yeah. That's my TSH, yeah.
1 point, that's
good. So it says it's in range. I don't know. It's hard. I think that was the hardest thing for me getting diagnosed, was there were so many different opinions from doctors, especially, that it was really hard to know who to listen to and what advice to take.
What was happening? What were people saying?
A lot of stuff was kind of like, no, it can't be. It's not going to be type 1. It's likely not going to be type 1, and just my GP versus what my endocrinologist was saying. Even the last time I went to see her was maybe 6 months ago, and she was like, I really just don't think it's type 1. Like, it's, you're not on insulin right now. Like, I don't think, you might never need it. And then just from having a hypo in the hospital, I remember when I was in labor, one of the nurses telling me that maybe if I didn't drink as much orange juice and I kind of looked after my diet, that things wouldn't be so bad and I wouldn't have the diabetes. So that was kind of a shock to the system, because it's all new. And at the time, you don't kind of realize that it's out of your control. You kind of, if you hear a nurse or a doctor tell you something, you tend to take what they say seriously. And it's kind of, you have to develop a thick skin very quickly, I found.
I have a question. Do you drink a strange amount of orange juice?
No, I was just drinking a little bit for a hypo when I was in labor in the middle of a pandemic with a face mask on, not knowing what the hell was happening. So it was kind of like not the right time, even if it was something caused by diet, to even bring it up. But I think
you don't think that was a good time?
Yeah, like just bedside manners was lacking. And like typically I'd be very quick to kind of, talk back. But I think you're a little bit more vulnerable when you're in that situation as well, right?
Well, Claire, is there anything about you, like visually, that would make someone think you're not taking care of yourself?
No, I don't think so. I mean, unless I'm seeing a different version of myself than everybody else is seeing, but I'm pretty healthy day to day. And I don't know, I think like people as well just sometimes like to have opinions maybe out of self-importance and kind of don't use tact. And just when someone's in labor, it's never a good time to say anything to them. Like, just be kind, hold their hand, right?
I have to be honest. If someone would have said that to me or my wife in that situation, I would have been like, she's leaving. That one right there. Get her out. I was
right?
Like, that's enough. She's got some rock solid orange juice advice here, but other than that, I think I need her to go. Wow, that's really interesting. Did that stick in your head, or was the moment so crazy you kind of were able to let it go in the moment?
In the moment I let it go, but after my daughter was born, like that stuck with me, because I think just getting the diabetes in pregnancy, and then another nurse told me that I was having an anxious reaction to it, which I was, because like I was terrified, right? When I found out first, my first concern was like, okay, is my daughter okay? Like I need to make sure everything's good with her. And you feel a lot of guilt, right? Because you're responsible for this little life that's growing inside you. So I think it was the postpartum period. And then just because taking insulin during pregnancy was so difficult, it felt like I was constantly trying to keep my bloods up. So when people were trying to, like, you think you take insulin to stop the spikes, to keep your blood down. For me, it felt like that was like the first kind of 20 minutes. And from then onwards, I was constantly eating to try and keep my blood up. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I had just kind of come off the internet and everything, because I was like, I can't look up any more bad news about diabetes. Like, this is awful. I was looking in the wrong places. So I kind of, my idea of what it was like to live with diabetes, I think, was very skewed by not understanding the challenges in pregnancy. And then after birth, just going through the process of thinking that I needed it and then not needing it anymore. And then just kind of watching my blood constantly, because I started having hypos after birth, but I couldn't feel them, right? So I had this new, like, tiny little baby that was in NICU, and she was okay. But when I was like holding her, I put her back in the cot one day and I injected myself with insulin to have lunch. And then all of a sudden my Dexcom is going off saying I'm at 3.6. And I've taken a load of insulin thinking I'm about to eat. And I didn't feel a thing. So for me, that was kind of scary, like not knowing and just seeing how quickly, like, you could drop afterwards. So that kind of stuck with me the first few months with Ava. Then I came off insulin completely. But there was always that fear, like, this is going to start again. And when will it start? And like, my quality of life was so gone for the 10 weeks that I had it during pregnancy. There was a lot of fear around that. So then one day I think I stumbled, like, I started looking up on YouTube and, you know, like different people's experiences with diabetes, but I couldn't find anybody that kind of had the lifestyle that I had, which was like a lot of traveling, a lot of hiking, a lot of drinking wine with my friends. And then I stumbled across Jill on this podcast, and I was like, okay, there's a me, like I get this. And she had just had a baby and everything. So I think it was from then on I started like learning a lot more about it, and how you can manage it and that it is manageable. And for me, then that was like the starting point of like, okay, things are going to be okay, because the future is like unknown right now because I'm not on insulin.
Wow.
But I know that like it's around the corner. I just don't know when.
Yeah. I want to dig into it a little bit. And I want to find out too, just very quickly, do you by chance live in the fairy tale land of Duloc? And was that nurse a gingerbread man? Because that's not true.
Maybe it was just all a hallucination.
A hallucination is what I'm saying. I think I'm just saying that I love your accent, really, is what I'm getting at.
Really? Yeah. So I'm from Ireland. I live in Canada now. But yeah, that's where my accent is.
Mm-hmm. It's lovely. And and you're in Canada.
Yeah, I'm in Canada, in Alberta. I've lived here 7 years now. So I came here with my then boyfriend. He's now my husband, and we have our little Canadian now.
Nice. You made a Canadian.
Yeah, we made a Canadian. She's our little souvenir.
You should have just got one of those pennies you roll through the thing and it flattens it out. Makes a token. Would have been easier, maybe. So I want to pick through the entirety of this. So you find out that you have hypothyroidism. Have you ever been tested for the antibodies that would tell you if it was Hashimoto's?
I don't believe so. Would that, like, what benefit would that have?
It would let you know that that's an autoimmune issue.
Okay, so It's just something I kind of should look at for my own.
Yeah, I might want to know. And you said there's celiac in your family, or do you have it as well?
My mom got diagnosed with celiac disease when she was probably in her late 40s, early 50s.
Okay, so she has an autoimmune. Anybody else?
My aunt has Crohn's.
That's autoimmune. All right.
Yeah.
You?
I have the thyroid then, and now I have type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, but your diabetes doesn't need insulin?
No, so it's LADA, they call it.
You've got LADA. Okay.
Yeah, so apparently it's just a slower progressing version of it. I had never heard of it. Like, I always thought it was just children that got diabetes. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be like varying speeds that it progresses at. So since I found out I had it, there's different groups, and some people are on insulin right away. Some people go years and years without insulin. So I don't know where I fall. I'm on metformin now the last kind of 2 months, and that's helped. When I got my COVID vaccine, my blood started to kind of go up and they never kind of came back down. So the metformin is helping. I do spike. I wear my Dexcom all the time, so I can kind of see, that I do go higher than I'd want to go. But anytime I get my Haaech Bee A1c done, it's usually like around the 5.2 mark.
Mm-hmm. So what's a spike look like to you? Is it usually after meals or not necessarily?
It depends. So if I ate like oatmeal on its own, I'd probably go up to maybe like 12 or 13. If I have like a little bit of oatmeal with like peanut butter and I have some Greek yogurt, I'll probably stick around like the 7 or 8 and kind of come back down and probably like sit between 5 and 6.
Okay, because a 13 is like 230. I'm trying to make sure everybody understands. A 7's about 126 and a 5 would be 90. So if you eat certain foods, you go up to a 13, let's say. How long does it stay up there?
Not long. So I think like the longest I've ever been like pretty high, like maybe a 14 would probably be like 2 hours. And then it comes right back down by itself. So where I'm at now is like, I kind of know what to avoid to keep my blood in range. Mm-hmm. And I can do that. Like, I've gone through everything, because you hear some people say, and like this was hard as well, it's like go low carb. And for me, especially now, because we want to have another baby, I'm really nervous about the fact that I'm not on insulin, because I don't know what's going to happen those first weeks. And there seems to be a lot of stuff out there, like if you eat low carb, it's really good. It'll prolong your honeymoon. It'll, help you. And then there's other people saying, well, low carb is really bad if you're trying to get pregnant. So I'm kind of just somewhere in the middle right now. Like I would eat, I think, like a moderate amount of healthy carbs. And then I obviously just have treats, like the odd time I'll have like a couple of beers or ice cream or something, knowing that that will spike me, but that it'll come back down pretty quickly.
Okay. Is the plan that one day when it doesn't come back down quickly, you start using insulin?
Yeah, I mean, my endocrinologist has been really clear with me that like insulin is definitely in my future. It's just that she doesn't know how far away that will be. She said, like, because I got the autoimmune, like the antibody test done. So I have the GAD antibodies.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, like, it's just a case of time, but they don't know, like, that could be 10 years. It could be a year. Like, there's no way to tell.
Right. Okay. What made you want to come on the podcast?
The big thing for me was because, like, I was so distraught just because of how I felt when I was pregnant with the insulin. Like I feel like at the time, like I couldn't exercise, I couldn't, do all the things that I wanted to do because my blood was just constantly going down. And I really felt at the time that like, oh God, like my quality of life is gone. Like, what am I going to do? It took me like one recommendation to hear the podcast just to kind of have a change in perspective and understand that like things were going to be okay. So I think just for me, like there might just be like one person out there in the same situation, and maybe they just need to hear that someone else has been through the same thing, or find something like relatable between our stories, and just kind of know like that there's support and that there is like a light at the end of the tunnel. Like being pregnant isn't the best time to get diagnosed, I think, with anything.
Yeah.
And especially because you go through all these like postpartum issues as well. And at the time you don't realize that your hormones are going completely crazy. But just, I think it's just really helpful. And anybody that I hear of now that, I know that they have diabetes or that they're struggling with diabetes, I'm like, you need to listen to the Juicebox podcast, like just listen to it. And I don't know. I think it's like before diabetes, like you'd really want to meet like a rock star or somebody famous. And now I'm like, oh my God, I get to meet like the owner of the Juicebox podcast. Like, this is amazing, right? Like you're like Bono, like.
Well, I appreciate that because you're Irish and because you said Bono. That seems like it's a big deal to me. Well, thank you. It's an honor to meet you as well. I'm very happy to hear your story. And I want to understand a little more. So 26 weeks, what's the first sign that makes somebody think you have gestational at that point?
So looking back now, I would wake up in the middle of the night thirsty, maybe for about 2 weeks before I went to the doctor.
Okay.
But I had 2 colleagues around me at the same time that were pregnant, and they were thirsty all the time. They needed to pee all the time. They were tired all the time. So I didn't really know anything. Like I wasn't tired. I had good energy. When I say I was thirsty, it was like I'd wake up in the middle of the night once, need to go to the washroom and drink water, and that would be me fine until the morning. It was the itchy legs that kind of sent me to the doctor. And it was honestly all by chance. Like he thought it was something to do with my liver, and he just said, hey, get your diabetes blood work done at the same time. And then because it came back high, he was like, okay, we need to look at this further.
How much did your legs itch?
Like they were pretty bad, actually. Yeah, I kind of felt like my skin was crawling. And apparently that's like common. There's some condition you can get with your liver in pregnancy that can cause that. But like a lot of people, and that's another thing, like just trust your gut, because a lot of people were like, oh, itching is normal in pregnancy. It's fine. It's just part of it. But I think that probably was a symptom of the diabetes just kind of coming through.
Were you retaining a lot of water? No, you were peeing a lot.
No. Honestly, like the week before I was diagnosed, I was up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I didn't get to bed, I think, until like midnight that night. And I was like active, like I was flying it, like I was in the best health of my life. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't expecting for anything to be going on underneath the surface.
Well, you got lucky with the doctor being so thorough.
So lucky. So lucky. And even just like with my endo, because I've known of a lot of people since then that are either told it's just gestational and it's kind of forgotten about. And I know of an awful lot of people as well that are given the wrong diagnosis of type 2. So they spend years kind of battling with diet and, trying to sort it out, thinking it's, something to do with what they're doing when it's actually just misdiagnosed type 1 as well. So I was really blessed.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I keep thinking when you're talking. Like, this guy could have said, oh, she's probably just retaining water and you're itchy and whatever. Or could have just said, oh, okay, well, let's go test for this thing that he was thinking about the liver. And then that would have come back negative and he would have been like, oh, your legs itch. But instead, man, went for it. Like, just did the right thing.
He knew. But so it's really weird because when I got my first visit with him, he was like, so let's talk about your liver. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, oh, your hepatitis. And I was like, no, I don't have hepatitis. Like, I know I don't. I've had the injections, like I've traveled all over the world. But he was actually like a consultant, like a specialist. And I guess somebody messed up a blood result and got confused. So I landed in with him. So it was just funny how it worked out that he was a specialist in pregnancy with conditions. And that's probably why he picked up on it as well so quickly.
Did they say cholestasis when they were talking about your liver?
Maybe. I can't even remember.
It's the only thing I can find while you're talking. CHOLESTASIS of pregnancy is a liver condition that occurs in late pregnancy.
So apparently it's common. Like
triggers,
it's
intense itching without a rash. How about that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and it's your first pregnancy, so you have no idea what's going on. Like you're really just kind of on a wing and a prayer, right?
Yeah. But so when they got your blood sugar under control, when they got your blood sugar under control, did the itching go away?
Yeah, it did. It did when I was on insulin. And it hasn't really come back. I had it back for a little while postpartum, but I think that was just hormones, like just dry skin.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So once he gets this test back, he starts you on what? What's the medications like? Does he use a basal insulin or just a
long-acting and fast-acting?
Right away.
Yeah. So I met with the endocrinologist in the hospital the same day. I think when I was diagnosed, my HbA1c was like 8.8.
Look, if you're anything like me, you eat like a monster, a garbage monster, and then you lie to yourself and you say, no, I eat fine. Well, I realized one day that's not true, and I should stop acting like it is. If I'm not going to eat the way I'm supposed to, at least I could take a green drink that would help me. And I tried a couple, and they tasted like hot garbage. So I stopped doing it until I found AG1 from Athletic Greens. And I'm swearing on a stack of Bibles. It tastes good. And trust me, if it didn't, I wouldn't be able to drink it. I'm that person. Anyway, AG1 is lifestyle friendly whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It has less than 1 gram of sugar per serving, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anythings. It supports better sleep quality and recovery, and I take it because I don't think I'm getting enough vitamins in my diet. To make things even more interesting for you, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/juicebox. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/juicebox. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. That's what I did. You could do it too. There are links in the show notes of your podcast player and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to Athletic Greens, Touched by Type 1, and all of the sponsors. When you use my links, you're telling the advertisers that you found out through the podcast. And when you do that, they keep buying ads. And when they keep buying ads, I get to keep making the podcast, and you get to listen to the podcast for free. Isn't that great? athleticgreens.com/juicebox, touchedbytype1.org. A second ago, when I said that's what I did and you could do it too, I heard the Tony Stark quote from the original Iron Man movie. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this. Let me get you back to Claire.
When I was diagnosed, my HbA1c was like 8.8. So like not like hugely over. I think they say like don't go over 7 when you're trying to get pregnant, I believe is what you're kind of told. So they started me on long acting and short acting right away. And my goal was to get under 6.8 mmol 2 hours after eating. So like I would eat, my blood would spike, but as long as it would come under the 6.8 after eating, I was told that was okay. But now I'm kind of like I didn't know about pre-bolusing. I didn't know about like there was no kind of, play around with your insulin, like figure it out yourself. I was very much just kind of like doing what I was told, but then constantly feeling like I was trying to keep balls in the air. That was my blood sugar. And it was always dropping. Like I remember one day just even going across the road to go into Winners, and I was fine leaving the office. And then I was having like a hypo before I even got to the door of Winners. So it was just like constantly up and down. There was no balance.
Can I be honest with you for a second?
Yes.
Your accent is so delightful that I have trouble even wanting to ask you a question. I'm just so happy listening to you speak. And I know that This is not something you're aware of, but you're not the first person I've spoken to with an Irish accent, right? My favorite thing about it is when you say HbA1c, because it comes out HbA1c. Like that. Go ahead, say it for everybody right now.
HbA1c.
I love it. It's my favorite thing. That's
hilarious because I think I sound like a 12-year-old. Like my voice is so high pitched.
You sound like you're about to grant me a wish in a field.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh God.
But it's the hate. Like if I just spell it, it's like HAAECH, and then the B is like BEE, but it goes on forever. And then the A1C comes out very quickly. Do it one more time.
HbA1c.
It's my best thing. You've made my whole day. Thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad.
I don't even care if your story's true at this point. Although, what an odd thing to make up.
Right. Yeah.
So you make it through the last months of the pregnancy pretty well. I guess their expectations were, I'm guessing, that they're not going to teach you the ins and outs of diabetes that much. And you've only got a couple more months to go. And that they probably imagine that when you're, they're not thinking, are they thinking LADA or are they thinking type 1 at that point? Like, I'm trying to figure out when they didn't
really know. Like, they had no idea what would happen. And yeah, because the first hypo that I had was really horrible. And I didn't know like what to expect, and it frightened me. So for a long time, I was more afraid of hypos than spikes.
Yeah.
So I think, like the nurses were really supportive, and they kind of got me through at a safe level. And we knew that my daughter was okay. She wasn't like too much overweight. Like, thank God, all of her organs, like everything was fine. So they just got me kind of through the pregnancy. The labor was really easy. Like, I didn't know any different. They just hooked me up to a drip. Like, I didn't even look at my blood sugar. They were monitoring it, and it was fine. And then after birth, my blood was spiking when I was eating. So they had me, so that's the other thing, like towards the end of pregnancy, my insulin resistance obviously like just dropped. So my insulin needs dropped.
Yeah.
So they brought me into the hospital thinking it was a placental failure, but I guess it was just that towards the end of the pregnancy, you don't need as much insulin. So I think I was like down to like 1 unit of long acting.
Yeah, that's been everybody's story so far, right? As it begins to end, and then boom, a lot of the ladies say that as soon as you deliver the placenta, your insulin needs change.
Yeah. So that was, but I went straight back on insulin after birth because I was eating and my blood was spiking. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, like I was just going low all the time. So they took it off me completely. And I still I go through phases. Like I'll go through like maybe a couple of weeks where my blood just runs higher. Like after my COVID vaccination, it was running higher. If I'm sick, I run higher. If I'm stressed, I can run higher. So it's kind of just like riding the waves and just kind of see kind of what happens.
Tell me again, in the process, where did the antibody testing happen?
Right away, like literally the day that I went into my endo, because they knew just because of the autoimmune diseases. And then she also said just kind of by looking at me, I was pretty slender. So they kind of thought like just to search for type 1 right away.
Mm-hmm. No, I remember you saying that now. It slipped my mind for a second. You really are. You have me at a disadvantage because if we went on a date, I would just be like, oh, it's fine, Claire, say whatever you want. I'm just going to sit here. I have a hard time wanting to even speak while you're speaking.
I wish my husband felt like that.
Yeah, he's not going to do that. But that's because to him, you sound like his mom, probably.
I probably do. Yeah. There's a lot of, I agree with you.
Yeah. To me, it's just delightful. I feel like Shrek and Donkey are going to walk out of the woods soon and we're all going to go on an adventure together. It's really fantastic.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's wonderful. The metformin, when did that start?
That started 2 months ago. So just, after the COVID vaccination, my blood's they were just sticking around like the 10 mmol mark constantly. And that was maybe kind of for a period of 2 weeks. So my endo was just open to trying metformin because it kind of like it has helped other people with LADA. And it has helped me. Like I definitely, I'm back in the range I was before starting it. And I even can kind of eat, like I'll get away with having a slice of toast on its own now, whereas beforehand that would kind of spike me. So I haven't had any side effects with it or anything. It's just been easy for me to take.
He went right to the metformin. He didn't say maybe more insulin, or did you not use more insulin because you're still experiencing times when you don't need it?
I'm still experiencing times where I don't need it. And also like, I want to avoid going on insulin just for as long as I can. I have a really busy toddler right now. Like she's running around everywhere. I know that if I started on insulin now, like my blood still goes, like there's sometimes my blood is down like at 5 or like 4.8. So I just feel like I'd rather go on insulin when my blood is higher, that I kind of know that I need it. And maybe I don't have to deal with hypos as much because they kind of frighten me a little bit.
It's interesting, isn't it, how this process changes you, because a 4.8 is an 86. And if I was wearing a CGM and my blood sugar was always 86, I'd be so happy.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and it's not always like it'll go there for a little while. And then it's usually kind of around the 5 and 6 mark.
Right. But your concern is, I'm imagining, that if you were using insulin, it would be difficult for you to maintain this 4.8. And that you start getting low at a time where you're trying to raise. So you're just kind of trying to cheat the system for a little while, right? Like
I'm trying to cheat the system for a little while. Like I want to, like learn how to be a mom first with my daughter. Like that was the biggest thing as well after birth, was just not having to manage learning about insulin whilst trying to learn how to be a mother. That's kind of where I was at. And just like the freedom as well, right, that I have now, like I'll go for drinks with my husband. And like, I know that once I start insulin, there'll be a learning curve there that I'll have to learn how to navigate all those different things in my life. So, that's kind of like the longer I can avoid it, the better.
So are you... What's my question? It seems like you're in a really interesting place, right? Because someone's told you, look, at some point you're going to have type 1 diabetes full blown, but for now it's LADA, so it's taking forever and ever. But one day you're going to have that insulin need. Is that comforting and you're slipping into it slowly, or is it upsetting and you wish it would have just come on all at once 3 years from now?
After the birth of my daughter, the first 6 months, it was really upsetting because I had my CGM and I was always watching my blood go up. And if it spiked at all, I was kind of thinking, oh my God, tomorrow is going to be the day. Tomorrow is going to be the day. I'm not ready. Now I've just gotten more used of the idea of it. And I'm kind of grateful for the time that I have now that I don't have to kind of stress about it.
Yeah. How long did it take for the panic part to go away?
Oh gosh, like a good 6 months after my daughter was born, for sure. Like, because I felt guilty for her as well. Like I was struggling with nursing, and then, some other nurse had said to me, like, if you breastfeed, like it's really going to help, like her maybe not get diabetes down the road and that kind of thing. And of course, like I believed that straight up. So I killed myself to make sure that I could nurse her. So I just, and the fear as well around her getting it was pretty strong. But I think as well, I might have never had diabetes and still felt like that. Like that could have just been postpartum and the middle of the pandemic. So,
Yeah.
but I definitely think like it just makes you stronger as a person as well and more appreciative. Like one thing I'm very glad about is that I know how vulnerable your health is earlier on in life rather than finding out about something when you're 60 or 70. Like I try to live more purposeful now and I kind of try to appreciate what I have rather than kind of worrying about silly things. So yeah, I don't know, like there's good and bad to it.
Yeah. Were you breastfed as a baby?
No,
I see.
I wouldn't have been. But I mean, like, once I kind of realized then, like, look, if breastfeeding cured diseases, like half the population wouldn't be sick, right?
Yeah, there's that thing, right? Like it's everywhere. You know what I mean? Like you see like I don't know. You see something and they're like, yeah, there's this tea you drink. All the famous people in Hollywood drink it. It's why they're so thin. I'm like, well, if that was the answer, you just think we all don't know about that?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Not that it's wrong to do. I mean, breastfeeding's wonderful. It's just to your point. It's not. I mean, there are plenty of people in the world who have diabetes and were breastfed. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, and then after the kind of 6 months, I kind of got a little bit more used to it. I do get nervous. I have blood work coming up now next week. So I always kind of get a little bit anxious about that just beforehand to see, like, is this the time that I'll go back on insulin? But I don't know. Like, it is what it is, right? There's definitely worse things to have.
Yeah. Have you reconciled yourself with the fact that the big shift hasn't come yet?
At moments, yes. And then there's other moments that I panic and I'm like, I'm not ready. So, like I tend to kind of overvalue things. So we're going on holidays back to Ireland soon. And I'm like, this has to be the best trip ever because this might be my last trip home without insulin. And I kind of turn them into like, you know, put too much pressure to make them into really big, good events. And then I just kind of need to talk it out with my husband. And he's like, look, like, you're still going to have the good holiday on insulin. Like you're still going to do all the things you want to do. It's just going to be a learning curve. So, yeah, it's just, I mean, I think that's just human nature as well, right? Like you get a bit panicky about the unknown.
It's funny how we ascribe like, I don't know, like it was better here or, you know, I want to do it this way without that. Or, I mean, that's just an interesting, you're going to have plenty of holidays that are going to be just as wonderful as the one you're about to have. And
exactly.
You'll have them and you'll be using insulin and have type 1 and it'll be the way that, you know, other people think of it. You'll be using basal all the time and injecting for everything you eat and you're still going to have a wonderful vacation.
That's it. And I think that's where the podcast helped as well, because my version of diabetes was always just up and down, up and down, up and down. So then when I started listening to people's stories and seeing that like they could live their day-to-day lives and just stay steady, I was like, oh, it's not actually what I think it is, right? Like I didn't actually realize that it was something you could have a totally normal life with. Like when I was pregnant, I thought, okay, this is it. I literally just have to try and keep my blood up for the rest of my life. Like that's what I'm going to spend my time doing. But I didn't realize like there was hormones at play and there was all these other like skills that you could do, like pre-bolusing and just reducing your basal if you're exercising and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, it sucks because that is at its core right now what diabetes is. Like once you get type 1 and you're given insulin and someone doesn't tell you how the insulin works, you're already mismatched. You're unbalanced, right? Like you're going to see spikes and crashes and spikes and crashes. And then that only has to happen for a certain amount of time before you accept it as your reality. And then if you don't have a physician who will step in and say, no, it's not, it doesn't need to be like that. We have to move some things around here and make it work better. Then that's it. You go off and live your life like that. And you can, and that is, I mean, you've watched it over and over again with people who've come on who have had diabetes for decades. It's draining. It takes it out of you, and eventually you lose your fight. And
that's like what I couldn't imagine, because like we're backpackers. Like we love traveling to like far flung places, and at the time as well, everyone was like, you know, you're going to be a mom. Like, oh, this is going to change. But that wasn't registering in my head. I was like, how am I going to go to like South America and like carry my insulin and be up and down all the time and not be like, I really thought
Huh.
like, oh my God, my life has changed forever.
Yeah.
So then it was kind of just when I went on, I think as well, like on the internet, like there's a lot of bad stuff and a lot of, stuff you should just stay away from. Like it was so refreshing to just find the podcast and hear people that had strategies, like actual strategies to get over the hurdles, and there was something you could do about it. You just weren't listening to people like complain about how hard it was. Like there's ways to fix it. So I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, I think in fairness, I take your point and I agree with you. But in fairness to the internet, everyone's just exchanging their experiences, right? They're just saying, this is what's happening to me right now. And, we just talked about it a second ago, the up and down nature and not knowing how insulin works and it feeling fait accompli, like this is just what's going to happen. That's people getting into that spot and then going out online and being like, I can't believe this is what my life is.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the next newly diagnosed person that sees that thinks, oh, we'll see, that is what diabetes is.
Yeah.
And then there's a different group of people who I'm trying hard to influence, which, I want them to say, oh, it turns out if I pre-bolus my meal a little bit or understand how insulin works or how fat impacts your blood sugar, like these things, that doesn't need to be the case. I mean, you're still putting in all the same work. You just have to put it in different places so you get better outcomes. It's just the nature of the internet. So you can't be, not that you're mad, but you can't be upset that people share their wonky experiences because it's the same platform that allows me to share my experiences.
Yeah, it would just be helpful maybe like when you get the little booklet that you get from the hospital, like the first line is just like, go to the Juicebox Podcast.
You're right.
That would probably just help everybody.
You're very nice to say that. If you would just use some of your leprechaun magic and make that happen, then we could be fine.
I'll just cure diabetes.
Yeah, you don't seem willing to do that, so it's fine. Where are some places you've hiked that you just were like, oh, I can't do this anymore?
Well, because I would like go low just by walking, like where we are in Alberta, we're right beside the Rocky Mountains. So we would hike up there a lot. Like for our honeymoon, we were in the Middle East. And like, I remember reading about Syria. We visited Syria when we were going through there, and just like people, like if you have diabetes there, most people don't have access to insulin. Like they don't have access to the care that they need. And I just like that hits you as well. Like, especially when you have a child and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so lucky that I live where I live, that I have access to, what I have access to, because there's people like, and I just like, that's disgraceful in this day and age as well, that there are people that don't have access to the care that they need to help them with a disease that's like all over the world. But for me, I was like, well, I can't imagine go back to these places on holidays now. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've a toddler now, so I can't really imagine going anywhere on a peaceful holiday.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Claire. Yeah, it's your life's over. I mean, you understand, right?
Yeah, I'm like, I was like daydreaming. I was like, oh, I'd love to be by a pool in Mexico. And I was like, no, that would actually be horrific.
Yeah. Think of having a baby as a job that lasts like, I'm going to say like 25 years at its real core. And that you're always thinking like, oh, I can't wait till the weekend comes. But then the weekend just never comes, right? And then one day, where I'm at right now, believe it or not, I'm there. This is the weekend for me. My son is graduating from college in 3 days.
And you're probably heartbroken.
Oh, the whole thing's terrible, first of all. He shouldn't be this old, and this shouldn't be happening, and I don't want him to leave and go places and all that stuff. That's not my point. My point is that I'm at the weekend. I got there, right? I had a baby 22 years ago. I've been waiting for the weekend. The weekend's here. It's still not a weekend.
It's still not a weekend.
The weekend's never coming. Unless you're going to go get loaded somewhere and check out and ignore your children, this is the game, Claire. So
that's not gonna, I know. I wouldn't change it for the world though. Like it's the best thing. And even knowing like if I was to do it all over again and know that I was going to get diabetes, like I would do it 100 times over. I
agree with you. I would as well. Do you think the pregnancy threw you into the LADA?
Nobody can tell me. Like, I know that my blood work was normal in previous years. I guess like, I mean, you pee on a stick like 500 times when you're pregnant, right? Like nothing ever came up about high blood sugar. So I have no idea. Like maybe it was just there in the background. I know your insulin requirements go up when you're pregnant, or maybe the pregnancy just triggered it. Like I don't
I'm not
know.
sure. It's funny. I mean, we don't think of it that way. Like some people get gestational and then never develop diabetes afterwards too.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know. I bet it's an interesting thing. I'm gonna have to see if I can't find out. I mean, we talk about all kinds of other things that, move your immune system towards, doing the wrong thing. I've never heard anybody say pregnancy before, but maybe.
Yeah. I have no idea. I'm interested to see what will happen my next pregnancy and like what that will look like after as well. But I think we'll just have to figure it out as we go along.
Yeah. So you're going to do this again?
Oh, I'm going to do it again. Yeah, definitely.
So,
yeah, I don't know. Like, I know that the first kind of few weeks of pregnancy are the critical part, just when the organs and stuff are forming. So I've gotten Ginger, I forget her second name, but I've gotten her book about diabetes and pregnancy. So I'm studying that and I'm trying to prepare myself, and we'll just hope for the best.
Vieira. And Jenny's a co-author on that book, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. So, and I know like I might actually reach out to them and just see if they've had any similar kind of patients that they might be able to help me along a little bit to navigate it. But yeah, I suppose it's just totally out of control. Like, I don't know if my blood sugars are going to stay as they are early in pregnancy, if they'll go high, if they'll go low. But like my endo's really good and my diabetes educator, they're a phone call away all the time. So that's reassuring.
Have you had that thought? Like, should we sneak a baby in right now before this thing goes haywire? Or would you prefer that you had kind of full-blown type 1 and you knew how to manage it before you got pregnant?
I think I'm gonna wait till we come back from Ireland, because I don't want to be in another country and having to navigate it. And then we're probably going to, because I'm 35, so I don't want to wait like too much longer. And I think I don't really have a choice. Like, I'd probably prefer to be on insulin and navigating it and understand it, but I'd rather, like, I want another baby. It took us a little while to get pregnant with my daughter now, so I don't know how long it would take. So we're just going to jump right into it.
Oh, that's not a euphemism. You mean it. You're getting right to it.
Right?
Yeah. Wow. Well, good for your husband. I mean, that's nice. I don't know. I the last time we made a baby, it happened so quickly. I felt ripped off. I was
You're like, you just sneezed and it happened.
I was like, come on, that's not fair.
Yeah, right. I've heard a few people say that.
It just felt like a shakedown to me. I was like, never mind. Even if we had just started a number of days later, I might have at least gotten a month out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just too soon.
Boom. Pregnant. Great. Perfect. All right. Well, anyway, I'm waiting for that weekend to come back too. It's not coming either, Claire.
No, I know, right? You're just too tired all the time.
Well, that sounds like your response. I understand. I don't feel that way. There's nothing that I could never be too tired, Claire. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You can never be too tired. Okay.
No, I've tried to explain before. I think it's been a long time since I said this, but if I was in the middle of a mall and my mom was there and my wife was like, do you want to have sex? But we have to do it in front of all these people, including your mom. I'd be like, yeah, sure.
Oh, God.
I'm sure I really wouldn't.
You need to worry about that scenario.
I'm sure I really wouldn't, but I feel like I could, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, God.
Nevertheless, it's over now, Claire. I'm old, and the boy's old, and the girl's old. And Arden's going to her prom this weekend, and
that's so great. It just goes by so fast. Like, that's the thing that I can't believe about it. Like, 1 second you've got a little baby curling up in your chest, and the next minute they're, I don't know, like trying to drink out of the toilet bowl or whatever, right? Like, they're crazy.
Well, I can share with you that a couple of weeks ago, my son played his last undergrad baseball game for college. Like, he might keep playing after this, but it was his last college baseball game of his, his undergraduate, his first 4 years. And the next day I woke up Saturday, he's still at school and I'm at home, and I'm distraught, like genuinely distraught, because he's been playing baseball since he was like 3. And
Yeah.
now he's 22, and the season ended on a day they didn't think it was going to end on. So his last at bat, for example, I didn't know was going to be his last at bat. And I found myself thinking, like, all the bizarre things that people think, like, had I just known, I would have watched it differently, or like, I don't even know what I would have done, but I felt like I didn't do the right thing because I wasn't aware that it was over.
I
And
know it's the parent guilt. Like you feel like you wish. I remember when like my daughter was little, I would wish away the middle of the nights. Like you'd be up for hours, you'd be crying, and then it's over. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like I wish I knew that was the last night, or like I wish I could have this back again. And at the
if,
time, you're just trying to get through it.
yeah, to your exact point, Claire, if someone woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning tonight out of a dead sleep and handed me a 6-month-old Cole or Arden, it would be the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
You know?
It's crazy.
So I go for a ride the next day to kind of try to clear my head. And on my way home, I passed the field where my son played baseball when he was little, when he was 6 years old. And it's a park, and I pulled in. And I kind of sat there for a minute. I got out. It was a nice day. I went for a walk around the fields. And I must have lingered, because as I'm going back to my car, this gentleman says to me, "Can I help you?" And he was there with his kid getting ready for a baseball game.
Oh.
And I said, "No, I just, my son just played his last baseball game, and I'm just here remembering when he was 6." And I pointed to his son. I was like, "You're like your son's age." And I said, "I'm going to say something completely just trite to you that I said, it goes so much faster than you think it's going to."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I know, people say that." And I said, "You don't know." You know, like I must have sounded, I don't know how I sounded, to be perfectly honest with you. I said, "I know, like, cognitively you think you understand what I'm saying, but you don't. And you're going to be standing here before you know it, where I am." So, and I'm, I didn't say this, but in my mind, I was like, hell, I'm going to be dead. Like by the time that guy's kid is playing his last college baseball game, I'm going to be like 75 and try not to pee before I get to the bathroom.
I know.
So anyway, the whole thing sucks, Claire. That's what I'm telling you.
It's so crazy. Like you spend so much of your life just wishing time away. Like you're always wishing for the next best thing. And then like all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah. Time and reality don't jive.
No.
You can't make sense of them together. So, and you're never going to know until you know. And when you figure it out, it's going to be too late. So
you just have all this regret. And that's the one thing, like with the kind of silver lining, is that I do appreciate life a lot more now in the little things, and just, how important it is to take care of yourself and like treat yourself well, and don't always be like wait until you get to the next best thing or the next big thing. Like just take it all in, because like it just kind of taught me to like value my health a lot more as well.
Yeah, I think that people imagine that there's something better or more complete over the horizon.
Yeah.
And then every time they get to the top of the hill, they see another hill.
You just keep moving the goalposts on yourself, right?
Yeah. I guess one of the best ways I could explain it is I feel fortunate that I had to hold Arden's hand so much in the middle of the night to check her blood sugar.
Yeah.
Because I got to see her hand get bigger over time.
Yeah.
And it's not
That's so lovely.
Yeah.
My husband would be so proud of me now for not blubbing, because anytime I hear anything about little kids or anything, I always just get so emotional. He's always laughing at me, but I'm like, the love, like your heart just expands so much. Like it's crazy.
It's an experience that people don't have. And I only have it because of diabetes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I've held my daughter's hand probably almost every day of her life. And I've noticed it get heavier and her fingers get longer and it change and look more mature. And it's an experience I have that other people don't get. And most of the people listening to this podcast get to have that experience. But I wonder if they appreciate it.
Is it scary for you now seeing her go out into the world, like with the diabetes as well? Or like, I can't imagine my daughter going out into the big bad world, let alone kind of having something to manage like that all the time.
I'm excited because I think she can do it. And I'm a little I'm a little confident because I think I can help her if she can't.
Yeah.
And she's so, like, you really don't know Arden, but she's so, like, forward in a good way. Like, she's moving forward constantly. And it doesn't matter if she's got health problems or if things aren't going well. She doesn't sit back and curl up in a ball very often. Like, she's moving forward. She has this thing she's excited about. She's excited to go see if she can learn it. Like, she actually picked something to go to college for that I don't know that she's 100% certain is going to work out, but she's going to go try. And my only concern at this point is that the things that she doesn't know about diabetes, because they only happen when she's asleep, that there's no good way to explain them to her. Like, I'm still looking for the way to explain to her that once a month, for reasons that I still can't nail down, her blood sugar goes into the 50s and it won't move.
Yeah.
And that I have to give her more carbs than normal to get it back up. And that this is a thing that happens at 2:00 in the morning. And she's going to need to do that. And that she'll be tired the next day. And that if she overtreats the low, it'll ruin the entire next day. And I don't know if I should just let her experience it and then hope that she adjusts to it, or if I should try to explain it to her ahead of time. I think I'm going to try to explain these things. So at least when they happen, maybe she's like, oh, this is the thing he talked about with the getting low, or something like that. But overall, I'm not nearly as upset as I imagined I was going to be when she was younger, which is, again, what we're talking about here. Like, I was, I think there's an episode of the podcast that I titled "Worry is a Waste of Imagination," because when you're worrying about something, unless it's literally standing in front of you, you're imagining a thing that you think might happen, and very often they never happen. And you waste now worrying about later. And then when you get to later, there's a real thing to worry about that's not the thing you imagined. And I think I did that with diabetes a little bit. And I don't know that
it's hard not to do that, though. Like, I think you need, like, and you're saying about Arden as well, and like what a go-getter she is. Like, that's credit to you and your wife as well, right? Because she got that from somewhere, right?
I don't know. You think, Claire?
I don't know. I hope, like, I don't know. Maybe it might be better for my daughter not to pick up on some of my habits now that I say it out loud. But
when my wife and I had kids and we talked about, we were young, we used to talk to each other, and we would be like, what are our goals here for Cole? When he was young, and I said, I just don't want him to be an asshole.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? I said, when a group of people stand together and they disperse, I don't want them to look at him and think, kid's a dick.
He was the one.
Yeah. I think that's my real thought here, is that I don't know where he's going to go or what he's going to be or how he's going to turn out. But wherever that goes and whatever that ends up being, I just hope he does it nicely.
Yeah, no, I get that for sure. That would be my hope as well. Right now, though, with an 18-month-old, my hope is just to keep her safe every day, because there is no surface on the house that is safe. She's climbing on everything. She's crapping everything.
Trying to run her head into things.
Yeah, just, I'm one step away from wrapping her in bubble wrap.
Do you think she hears you and thinks, that lady sounds like a leprechaun?
Oh, probably. She's my mini. Like, my husband, like, I'll be saying something about her and he's like, yeah, like, the apple did not fall far from the tree. Like, this is your attitude all over.
That's so nice. It's nice now. When she's like 17, it won't be as nice.
No, it will be horrific.
Yeah. You'll be standing there going like, oh my God. Sometimes I look at my wife and I just laugh. And I know. And I think to myself, like, does she not see this in herself? Probably not, right? Or whatever it ends up being. Listen, I'll tell you, my kids are generally really decent people, and it's still very hard.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. You just everything is a new phase, right? You think like, oh, like the pregnancy is hard and the birth is hard. And then you're like, no, that's actually not the hard part.
No. I don't know if you heard a few weeks ago, Jen came on. It's an After Dark episode. She talked about her son, Nolan, who passed away from an overdose. And,
no, I didn't hear that.
And all I could think while she was talking is like, well, this lady got it like from all sides. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's not just because raising kids is hard enough, but then you add I mean, the poor kid had, I think he had bipolar disorder, and he was
Yeah.
addicted, and you just think, like, how are you supposed to manage that? You know,
Yeah.
like, how do you get
I
back from
can't
that?
imagine.
It's something, you know, and especially when everyone starts out the way you are right now. Look at me. I'm putting in your head your kid's going to do heroin. I'm not. I don't mean it like that. But I'll make you cry, Claire. Stay on the podcast 5 more
I'll
minutes.
just be howling on the podcast.
She's just like, so just drugs, and I'm like, and she's like 18 months old. I'm like, yeah, but, you know, but being really serious, like Jen had a great outlook, and her episode's terrific if you haven't heard it. But I just thought, like, I mean, how many things can you stack up against the person put to this boy? Like, how many things are stacked up against him and then her as a parent? And, you know, at what point do you just say to yourself, like, I don't know how to get back from this even, you know?
And just the strength that she has to come on and speak about it and like help other people. Like I don't know, I can't imagine like what that would be like ever.
Yeah. After I got done with her, I thought, I'm so grateful people do this. And I don't know why they do it. Like, there's like no lie, Claire. It's May now in 2022, just for context. I don't think I just booked somebody on the podcast the other day for 10 months from now. Like, that's how far out you have to go if you want to be on the podcast. And then after you record it, it takes 6 months for your episode to come out. And there's no shortage of people who want to come tell their stories.
Well, and people probably like you probably don't realize the impact that you have had on people and like it changes people's life, right? Like if you go from a place that you're really dark and you're kind of like you feel like you're always failing and you don't have that quality of life to just like you help people so much and everyone that comes on helps people. And I think like people just want to pay it for it because it makes such an impact on their life, right?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Like it really is. Like, because the podcast it doesn't exist anymore without people.
Yeah.
And you know, like I mean, how long, if you hear me back in like the 3rd season, you'll hear me muse out loud. Like, I don't know how long I can keep this going. And like, I know you guys like it and it's helping you, but I mean, how many things could I possibly say? And it just occurred to me along the way. I was like, people's stories are like the core of the show.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
they're relatable. And like, you probably don't realize as well, like, it's probably just the smallest little thing that means nothing to you could change somebody else's life, right? Like,
You know,
like, it doesn't, yeah.
I see that about it. That's why I think conversational is the way to go. It's why I think not pre-planning, it's the way to go. And it's why I don't give the show specific titles. Because if I make yours Lada during pregnancy, then only pregnant people are going to listen to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and look at all the really like myriad of things we've spoken about today. And so I don't know what I'll end up calling this episode. You know what I mean?
We've got like leprechauns, Shrek, parenting advice.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go.
Really
like,
got into, yeah.
Claire, you're magically delicious. Maybe I'll just say that. Okay. And so I don't know, but whatever it is, I won't name this show something that will stop someone from hearing the conversation. And
yeah.
And I think that you have to just like there's no lie. 20 minutes into this, like I've been making the show a long time, right? And 20 minutes into this or so, I thought there's not enough here about diabetes to fill an hour.
Oh yeah, right. Like it's just
I have to learn about Clare.
Agree.
Like that's what I thought. Like I have to learn about Clare now and see where this goes, because I mean it's the only way it becomes valuable to people. Because otherwise, it's you coming on and going, "Hey, I got pregnant, and then it turns out I had diabetes. Crazy. My blood sugar got low a little bit, and now we're waiting for it to, happen all the way.
Pop up again.
Yeah, I'll see you. Like, what's that? 8 minutes? So I mean, I really think that it's the little moments that you can't title that end up being the most help to people. And I only know that because I get so much like contact from people. They send me like letters and notes and write to me online and things like that. And the things that they tell me they loved, I'm always like, oh, wow. Like somebody heard that, like that 30 seconds in the middle of that episode, they heard that. That's really cool. So everyone needs something different. And hopefully that whatever they need exists inside of these conversations somewhere.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point. And like for me, I find as well, it's just like finding someone that is, relatable, that has the same, like we're all just going around living our lives. Like it's nice to know you're not on your own, I think sometimes as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's not feeling alone is a big part of this. And you're in a scenario where the people who are actually around you, I mean, the likelihood that your neighbor's going to have type 1 as well, or, I mean, geez, where are you going to find another person with LADA? You know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's anybody out there.
Nobody's coming to Canada, Claire. Stop it.
I would love to know somebody that was in the same situation as me and then got like pregnant again. Like for me, I would love to find somebody that had that story just to hear like how they navigated that. But I mean, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, right?
Well, you've come to the right place because yesterday's show is with Susan, and Susan is now very good friends with another person who's been on the podcast previously, and they found each other through the podcast.
Oh, cool.
So maybe you'll get one. Maybe we'll find you a lot of pregnancy that that reaches out and says hello. But are you on social media?
I am. Yeah, okay. I am.
Are you in my group?
I'm in your group.
How come I can't find you?
And my name is spelt in Irish, so my surname is different.
That's how you tricked me. Yeah. Because I tried to look earlier to see if you were very pale and short. And
well, I think I'm covered in fake tan in my profile picture. So.
You're covered in what? Fake tan?
Fake tan, yeah.
I have to be honest with you. I did not hear fake tan the first time you said it.
Oh, Jesus. Do I want to know what you heard?
I don't even know what you said. I was like, what is she saying? And then all of a sudden, I thought she said fake tan. I was like, where did I get that from? Oh, my gosh. Well, it's good. So when we post your episode, 6 months from now, if you want to jump into that thread and say, hey, look, that's me. I'm looking for people. If you're here, maybe you'll find somebody. Listen, there's a story in that Facebook page recently of a person walking out of a Costco wearing a Juicebox Podcast sweatshirt, and someone looked them in the face and said, I listen to that podcast too. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it's cool. Like, I feel like even because I ran into somebody the other day and they were wearing like a Libra, and I was like, oh, I've got my Dexcom on. And it's like, you just kind of, it's a great conversation starter.
Yeah. No, it's the only way you can find people sometimes too. Like don't get me wrong. If a guy walking out of a Costco is wearing a Joe Rogan t-shirt and somebody else said, I listen to Joe Rogan, I'd go, yeah, well, like sort of like 15 million other people, like that makes sense. But just two people who listen to a podcast about diabetes randomly walking past each other, it made me think one time, my wife asked me, she goes, do you ever sit in crowded places and think, I wonder if someone in here would recognize my voice? And I have thought that before. Like you
have a very distinctive voice as well. Like I feel like, yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like even like bigger picture, like is there a person, like I make this thing in a room and I put it on the internet. Like, is there a person here who's heard it? Like, you know what I mean? And it's happened. Like I've been approached in airports and places like that before, but it's an odd feeling to look around and think I might be doing something that's valuable for someone in here.
Like you are doing, and like all over the world, like that must be a strange feeling to think that like you start in a little room and like now you're helping people the other side of the world that you've never met, right?
It is an odd feeling. Yeah, I would not be able to tell you otherwise. I was writing with, I've become friends with Charlotte Drury, who was on the show recently, and we've been texting, and now many teenage girls who hear this are like, that's not fair. I want to be friends with Charlotte, but you can't be. I am. So that's it. But we were talking back and forth, and she found some stuff I was doing online. She was telling me what she thought of it. And I told her, like, I said, my overarching goal is to just change the way like people think about diabetes, like people, and then maybe to one day have an impact on how doctors talk to people about diabetes. Like that's how I think of the show. Like that, if I have like a master plan, it's that. I don't know if I'll ever bring it to fruition or not. But then day to day, I just want to help people. And I think if I can keep helping people day to day, that maybe that bigger goal could maybe come true one day. So
yeah, it's like the little steps, hey, to get to the bigger picture.
yeah.
Well, yeah, you're doing like, I mean, you've helped me, and then I've given the Juicebox podcast name to anybody that I hear of. So, and I think that's lovely as well, that everybody just spreads the word, and it doesn't really matter like how you feel or what support you need. It's just that like everybody seems to genuinely want to help everybody else. There's no stupid questions. There's no stupid feelings. Like it's everyone just seems to be really supportive, which is, you know, that's the way the world should be, right?
Yeah. No, I'm insanely proud of how that Facebook page works as an example. Like it turns out that if you all like when people listen to the podcast, they get a similar feeling about diabetes. Then when they come together, there's less of that kind of bad advice you can see online sometimes, you know, and people know when they don't know and they lay back, which is also really helpful. Anyway, listen, Claire, you're right. I'm terrific. I hear what you're trying to say. Thank you. I appreciate you saying it.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go downstairs now to the people who I'm related to who do not think I'm terrific in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And one day that little bundle of joy you raise will probably not care about you either.
I know. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah. I can't imagine what that's like. All like the thing now is like I'm like bouncing around and I've got like Peppa songs in my head constantly. So
Peppa Pig. Oh, Arden had a Peppa Pig birthday once, but I think it was ironic because she was older.
Oh, she was older, and my daughter is obsessed with Peppa Pig. Like, okay. I don't know why she chose Peppa out of everyone she could choose, but it's Peppa.
That's amazing. All right. I want to thank you very much for doing this. I want to ask you if there's anything we didn't talk about that we should have.
No, I don't think so. Thank you for letting me do it.
Are you kidding me? This is amazing. I didn't know you were going to have this accent. You made my whole day. For clarity, I believe the episode is going to be called Haaech Bee A1c.
All right. Okay.
One more time, just for everybody.
Haaech Bee A1c.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
I have to hear like myself say it now, record it, because I don't know how I'm saying it.
Yeah. Well, that's the best part of asking you to say it over and over again, because I think your brain hears HB A1c.
Well, it's like I don't say 3, I say tree. Like, I think it's just an Irish thing. We pronounce things differently.
You said thanks oddly a second ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of like when I moved to Canada first, I would be saying words and people would not know what I was talking about. So, yeah, it's funny when you hear it from people the other side of the ocean, right?
Mm-hmm. Hey, real quick, you have a different perspective because you lived in Ireland, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The icy hellscape that I describe when I talk about Canada, am I anywhere near being right?
I think it's colder in Ireland when it's like -1 or 2 than it is in Canada when it's -15 in Alberta, because Alberta is really dry and Ireland's really humid and wet, and the cold goes through you. But yeah, when it's like -30, it's horrible.
Right. And have you ever seen a beaver just walking down the street or anything like that?
No, but there's like deer will cross the road, and we get like bobcats and stuff in our gardens sometimes.
Okay, well then I'm right. Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
I'm right. Let's just say I'm right then. Okay, deer and bobcats, -30 degrees, frozen hellscape. Okay, I've got it.
Well, I'll tell you a story. Like my dad laughed so hard because in Ireland there's like lots of farms and there's cows and there's sheep and everything. So we were hiking out here one day and we thought we seen a bear. And then we were kind of like, okay, like it's a bear, like this isn't ideal, but we've got our bear spray. We kind of know what to do. It wasn't a bear. It was a gang of cows in the middle of the forest in the mountains. We had not got a clue what to do. Like we were kind of shimmying past them, afraid they would attack us. So my dad like laughed so hard when he heard that, because I grew up around cows.
Wait, mountain cows?
Just like regular cows. I don't know what they were doing in the middle of like the mountains.
Come on, Canada, get it together.
It was really strange.
Get your cows where they belong.
Exactly.
There was someone on recently from Ireland who talked about those long-haired cows that lived in the woods near her house.
Oh gosh, I don't know what they are.
I forget now. She's been on twice and I love her and I can't think of her name off the top of my head. I'm so disappointed. Actually, you know what? She was on episode 10 originally.
10? Okay,
Yep.
I'm going to look that
And
up.
her name's, it's called Teddy's mom. She's Anne. And I don't think I made the next episode easy to find. I don't know if that makes you, if that comes as a surprise to you or not, anybody listening. I don't know which one, but she was just on in the last couple of months, again, to revisit, because it was really interesting to have her back on. Like, she was on the 10th episode of the podcast. Like, I made a podcast in 2015, and this woman reached out and she's like, I'd like to be on your podcast. And back then, try to imagine, I was like, I barely have a podcast, but okay. And then 8 years later, she was back on the show again.
That's so crazy. I'm going to find that episode and listen to it next.
Okay. All right. Anyway, long-haired cows. That's what I heard when she was talking. Maybe I'm wrong. You know,
they are. Yeah.
I don't drink during the podcast, so I trust my memory on this. So, all right, Claire, this was wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Hold on one second. Okay.
Sure.
Well, I want to thank Claire, first of all. She was absolutely just delightful. I also want to thank Touched by Type 1 and remind you to find them on Facebook, Instagram, and at touchedbytype1.org. They really are an absolutely amazing organization, and I do want you to go check them out. Of course, Athletic Greens, right? They make AG1. It's a green drink that tastes good, that's got all the vitamins and goodness in it that you need. athleticgreens.com/juicebox. I use it every day. I actually think you'll like it, and that's why they're a sponsor. So go check them out. athleticgreens.com/juicebox. Hey, I'm doing a survey about the podcast. It's pretty cool, and it just sort of tracks what people think of the show as far as their diabetes and health. Basically, you know, is the show helping you? Are your doctors helping you more? You know, where are you getting your best support from? It's a great little survey. We put it together ourselves. It already has over 500 responses, and I have not spoken about it yet on the podcast. I've so far just made it available through the private Facebook group, but now I would like to tell the people listening to the podcast to see if you're interested in going and filling out the survey. It's just telling me about the different series, what you think of them, you're rating your doctors, the podcast, other diabetes help. This information goes nowhere. It's completely anonymous if you want it to be. You don't have to put your information in to connect you to it. But that's it. I'm just doing a survey to see how the podcast is going. If the data proves out, we might share it with some doctors' offices, show them how the podcast helps people so that maybe they'll take a look at it, and probably use some of the data on social media posts and things like that. We're just trying to let more people know about the Juicebox podcast, and your answers to these questions will help me do that. So now here's the thing. The link's a little funky. It's, yeah. I'm going to put it in the show notes for you because it's like s.surveyplanet.com/WGJVFXDX. And I don't think you're going to remember that. So I'll just put the link right in the player for you here. I hope you guys check it out. It would be really cool if you could take the time. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.